Still here at the Aviation March, which has so many interesting people. I'm really enjoying the interviews here. So I've got somebody with me who's actually been a pilot in the aviation industry. Could you introduce yourself to us?
Absolutely, yes. So my name's Dan. I was a pilot for about 12 years. It's my childhood dream. I wanted to do it since I was 6 years old, and it's not something I guess you'd expect to hear at an event like this, for someone to talk about how much they love flying. But I absolutely love flying. I love planes. It's all I've ever wanted to do. I think for so many different reasons, I joined different dots over the years. It got to a point where I just felt deeply uncomfortable with the direction of the profession, for all the different reasons we're hearing so much about just now. And I was faced with the option really of staying in that conflict, that discomfort, or removing myself and trying to contribute towards meaningful change. And that's what I did. So 3 years ago I stopped flying. I haven't actually flown since. I'm doing what I can to contribute towards a more livable future.
Well, that's great. We can hear them chanting in the back, no airport expansion. But we talk about sometimes climate change in a kind of future sense, and something that we don't have to worry about. But you took a really deep personal choice yourself that you didn't want to be part of what was happening now. Can you tell us what your process was like with that?
Absolutely. I recognised that not only the future direction of the profession was wildly inconsistent with the scientific consensus about what we need to do, but as you're saying, actually what's happening right now is way beyond what we can be doing, and it's so easy to get stuck on a few key sort of statistics that I think we often hear. Aviation is only, I hate that word only, 2.5% of global CO2 emissions, as if that in itself isn't a huge number. When you start to bear in mind the fact that we often don't hear about the non-CO2 warming effects, we're actually looking at more like 6% of aviation. Right now, 6% of global greenhouse gas emissions are from aviation. And even that, some people might go, okay, big deal, we should think more about, what about? But then when you consider the number of people that fly in a given year, so globally, when 5% of the world's population fly in a given year and are producing 6% of global greenhouse gas emissions, you suddenly see a wholly different picture. And this is a minority of the world flying for mostly luxurious purposes, not always, mostly luxurious purposes, and most of the flying I did was exactly that. And it's just deeply uncomfortable because it's not about the future. It is absolutely about what happens, when we reach these tipping points beyond 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 3 degrees. But it's what's happening now. There's 1 billion children in the world right now that are at risk or are suffering from the impacts of our warming world right now. And for someone that has young children, that's not something that I can feel comfortable with, knowing that there's just this mission for uncontained, uncontrolled growth, which is wholly removed from the scientific consensus and the truth. And we have to question that. And this is coming from someone who loves flying. I don't want to suddenly see flying stop altogether tomorrow. In some ways, I suppose I do. But what I want to do is start with the truth and not fit the model that the airlines, the fossil fuel companies want to see into a green agenda. I want to start with the truth, start with the end in mind. What do we need to achieve, and where does aviation fit within that? And we're so far away from that right now. I just couldn't be a part of it, so I'd rather be able to speak openly about it from outside.
What really strikes me with that story is amazing is that all of us are involved in whatever jobs we have. All of us have contributions to what's happening with the climate and ecological emergency now. And when I hear your story, I think that's really an invitation to myself and to everybody listening to this and watching this today to think about, in my daily life, where can I be looking at my profession and things like that. We know that we need system change, and obviously, that's what we're here to demand, Department of Transport do things, but we can also all become activists in our own way, in our professions and in our lives, to actually say we're not going to tolerate this anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And activism comes in so many different forms. We know about some of the more obvious, forms of activism which we see, which I think are absolutely vital. But activism can go right through to having a conversation at the dinner table, just being willing to acknowledge something. Within professions, that's massively important. People who are currently in professions, and I think we're stuck. What I certainly experience is that when you feel conflicted because you work for a company which is inconsistent with what you believe to be important, you work for a company that's not contributing towards a livable future, I think it can feel very hard to feel as though that you're entitled or somehow allowed to speak about it. And what we need is people willing to do that. You know, they don't even have to leave their jobs. In some ways, staying from within professions is extremely powerful. It takes courage. So I think, you know, we have those opportunities, and activism comes in many forms.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.